shape acceptance, knowledge, experience, social support, spiritual being, appreciation, virtue, positivity, intense spiritual experience, calmness, and optimism. Adolescents with a high level gratitude post favorable psychological well-being. On the other hand, adolescents with low gratitude will have an effect on low psychological well-being. Aside from the thankfulness level also correlates with the adolescent's happiness. A study by Widawati et al. 2018 later also associated high adolescents with the negative body image generally have a low gratitude, and adolescents with a negative body image also often worry about their physical flaws and feel dissatisfied with their bodies, which hinders their interpersonal skills and positive social relations with others. In conclusion, in conclusion, the research of the hypothesis test so that um, there is a role for big enough influence on body image. Uh, Next, thanks for your attention. I will return to the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Miss Afifah Husna Azahra, for your presentation. Now, I would like to share a time for anyone who's having a question for Miss Afifah Husna Azahra for her article, The Role of Gratitude on Body Image Among Male Adolescents. Anyone? I think it's something interesting because usually the one who have a negative body image is female adolescents, but now we
Yes,
have in this research we have a male adolescent as a subject, and they also have a low, also have a negative body image that result to a low self gratitude.
yes, yes. I am interested in this research because little research um, discuss body image in male adolescents. Many discuss female body image.
Okay, but all we are is maybe females, so we don't have male adolescents to compare about body image. Anyone who wants to give Miss Afifah Husna a question, maybe? No one? Maybe if we no one have a question for Miss Afifah, we can move to the next presenter. It's okay with that? Okay, thank you. Give applause to Miss Afifah Husna Zahra for her
Thank you,
presentation.
Miss
Thank you
Afi.
very much, Miss Afifah. Now
Yes,
I would like to welcome our next presenter for this occasion is Miss Fiana Azahra, Mr. Aryudo Widiatno, Mr. Muhammad Bisri, and Mrs. Ayudia Hapsari for the article The Relationship Between Emotion Regulation and Resilience in Single Mothers Processing Multiple Roles in Malang City. Miss
okay.
Fiana Azahra as the first presenter, are you ready?
Yes, Miss
Okay, I
Sandy.
give time and screen for you.
Yeah, I would like to share my PowerPoint first.
Okay,
Is it visible?
okay.
Let me start. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fiana Azara, and today I will deliver my presentation entitled The Relationship Between Emotional Regulation and Resilience in Single Mothers Possessing Multiple Roles in Malang City. Here is the introduction. Family is the smallest unit in society. Generally, it consists of parents and children. However, what happened in society, there were family who doesn't have both completely father and mother. Therefore, this created a concept called single father and single mother. A single mother not only has the responsibility to raise and take care of their children, but they also have to fulfill the financial needs because they are taking over the previous role that husband has been doing before as a working mother. They have to experience series of events. First, getting lack of support from social and emotional perspective, as well as psychological aspect due to the depressing or bitter process of losing a partner. And then they also experience difficulties in managing their time between working and taking care of their children. These two responsibilities all the same time that have to be done by single mothers called multiple roles, which can cause a conflict. Multiple roles can cause a conflict because it creates and it triggers negative emotions such as frustration, anxiety, depression, sadness, and many more. Therefore, it has the potential to trigger stress as well and any negative impact. Um, so the solution to deal with this is to have good and stable emotional regulation. Uh, what is what is emotional regulation and what is important for mother to own? Emotional regulation is the ability to regulate and manage emotion effectively. And this process can be supported by having another skill called resilience. Resilience is a condition where an individual has the ability to bounce back after experiencing trauma or any adversity on a daily basis. And resilient families will definitely have more hope and be more hopeful, optimistic towards the future because having the ability to perform resilience on the daily life. Resilience is also important for single mothers because in the future, if they face any obstacles, single mothers can overcome it. That is why we can conclude that this study has the purpose to examine the relationship between two variables of single mothers who have multiple roles in Malang City. And this is the literature review. For emotional regulation is the ability that individuals have to manage thoughts and behavior. They can also suppress, control, and strengthen or even maintain emotions according to their goals. And the definition of resilience is an ability of how an individual is able to face, accomplish, and being tough in overcoming obstacles and adversities that can be improved by learning to explore ways of thinking. And here is the method. I am using a quantitative approach with descriptive correlational analysis, which aims to know the description of the research and the correlation between emotional regulation and resilience. For the population, there is 108,120 studying age from 40 until 65 years. And the sample, we are using incidental sampling with 80 participants. For the scale, based on the for the scale, using the theory based on Gratz and Blumer, for emotional regulation and resilience using the theory according to Gertberg. And here is the results. For resilience, it was found that single mothers had a low level at 13.75%. For 70% had an intermediate level and 16.25% had high level. Meanwhile, emotional regulation, it was found that single mothers had a low level at 18.75%, 62.5% had an intermediate level, and 18.75% had a high level of emotional regulation. For the hypothesis test, based on the hypothesis test that has been done using the SPSS programs, the correlation coefficient was 0.697 with probability or significance 0.001, which is less than 0.05, which proves that there is a strong correlation between these two variables. and there's a positive correlation as well. And here is the discussion. The majority of single mothers were in intermediate level, which means they had sufficient ability to regulate their emotions and overcoming obstacles as well. It means that they have a intermediate level or average level on how handling with resilience and emotional regulation on a daily basis. And this also leads to the conclusion that there is a positive correlation between these two variables, meaning that the higher, the better the level of emotional regulation of single mothers in Malang City, the higher the level of resilience and vice versa. It was also found that there was a significant relationship, meaning that emotional regulation and resilience variable have a strong correlation and influence each other. So the recommendation and the suggestion for the future research is to increase and improve the ability for single mothers who have multiple roles in Malang City for performing emotional regulation ability and resilience as well. That is all about my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Fiana Azahra, for your presentation about the relationship between emotion regulation and resilience in single mothers possessing multiple roles in Malang City. I would like to share a time for anyone who's having a question for Ms. Fiana Azahra and her presentation today. Okay, Ms. Tiara Shiva. Again, it's okay. I like it if
I'm sorry,
is very active.
I asked the question over and over again, but thank you for Miss Fiana Azahra for the presentation. First, what I want to ask is, because the research is about the same thing that I also did in the past. So I want to ask, in the literature review, you use growth as the theory to define the emotional regulation, right? Gross 2007, I think. I want to know what is your reason when you use the definition by Gross, but you use another person in the instrument to measure your variable.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tiara, for the question. I would like to answer your question. The reason why I use Gross theory for emotional regulation, because at the first place, I want to develop a scale so that I can forward to all single mothers in Malang City. And I think the theory that is very suitable for me to use and develop for the scale and all the criteria is this emotional regulation by Gross. It's very specific as well to examine and describe what I've been wanting, what is my purpose of this study. I think that is my answer. Thank you.
Okay, so you develop your scale yourself, or you use you just translate and use it?
I developed by myself using the
Okay. So you will get what you want for the research, right? Okay. One question again.
Okay, go ahead.
Is the instrument can tell you what kind of emotion regulation that the participant use? As I know, there is some emotional regulation strategy as emotional suppression, and then appraisal, like that, and is that possible if we use that instrument so we can know what kind of emotional regulation strategy that used by the participants, your participants?
the aspect, I think I use this gross theory because the four aspect is very specific. It's strategies to emotion regulation and then engaging in goal-directed behavior, control emotional responses, and acceptance of emotional responses. It's more explainable. That is why I just use the gross, not any other terms or theory.
So we don't know what kind of emotional strategy that most of your participants chose as their strategies, right?
Yeah, just the
Just the what is
general,
yeah, in the general surface, right? Okay. Thank you for the explanation, Fiana.
Miss Tiara for the
Okay,
question.
thank you, Miss Fiana. I would like to ask a question. May I?
Yes, Miss Nanti.
Uh, I'm interested with multiple roles here. What kind of roles do they have as a single mother here? I mean, how many roles do they have, or maybe because presenter before is as a mother and as a wife, and as a single mother, maybe how many roles do they have?
Specifically, there are only two roles. The first one is working,
Okay.
and the second one for fulfilling the financial needs, and the second one is treating their children.
Okay, so it's a single mother who works. Are there any economical influence for the level of emotional regulation do they have? What they have?
I don't think there is available for the economical factors.
Okay, because I think if someone even if she's single mother and have a role as a worker, but as long as she can provide her child better economically, I think maybe it's also better emotional regulation that they have. Yeah, so there's a role of economical factor here. Okay, thank you for Miss Fiana Azahra. Maybe there's anyone who want to have a question for Miss Fiana before I close the opportunity to ask Miss Fiana a question. Maybe we can move to another to the next presenter. Can I?
Yes,
Okay, give applause to Miss Fiana Azahra for her presentation in relationship between emotional regulation and resilience in single mother possessing multiple roles in Malang City. Thank you very much for your kind presentation. Okay, I would like to present our next presenter is Miss Tiara Shiva Fadila and Miss Yudiana Ratnasari with the article entitled Analysis Between Emotional Suppression and Marital Distress on the First 5 Years of Marriage. Okay, Miss Tiara Shiva Fadila, time and screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss Profesi. The operator, can you help me to present the slide? Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tiara Shiva Fadila from Universitas Indonesia. Today, I want to present my research entitled Analysis Between Emotional Suppression and Marital Distress on the First 5 Years of Marriage. Next. For the background of the study, first, we know that marriage is one of the essential steps in the stages of individual development. In the process, couples will be faced with various tasks, conflict, and turmoil, which can cause distress to the couple. And the unresolved conflict stemming from avoidance behavior, for example, can lead to marital distress. This is done because most couples are apprehensive of their negative emotions and have difficulty managing them. So individuals tend to choose emotional suppression as their emotional regulation strategy. The use of this strategy can decrease the relationship satisfaction level, impair the quality of one's marriage, reduce intimacy, and also cause individual to judge their relationship more negatively. And then COVID-19 pandemic also might act as an additional stressor to the married couple, which can cause more conflict to occur. The use of less effective emotional regulation will affect their well-being, their marital relationship, and aggravating the marital distress. Okay, next. For the literature review, for the variable of marital distress, I use definition from Hammett, define that marital distress is a multifaceted phenomenon in which individuals may experience dissatisfaction on certain dimension of their marriage, and the dimension can seen by a three dimension such as dyadic consensus, dyadic satisfaction, and dyadic cohesion. And the factors affecting marital distress are negative communication, parenting conflicts, quality time, conflict resolution style, number of children, residential status, and changes in sexual activity. Next. For the emotional suppression, I use definition by Gross in 1908 with the definition of a form of emotional regulation that aims to inhibit the expressive behavior of the emotional felt, and the factors affecting emotional suppressions are gender, personality, and also culture. Next. And for the research method, I use the research design is quantitative, cross-sectional, and non-experimental. This is basically a correlational study. And then for the sampling method is non-probability sampling, which is convenience sampling. And the participants of the study is 1,170 participants, which is consists of 871 women and 299 men in their first 5 years of marriage. Average of their marriage age is 23 months, and 80.2% from the participant had previously been in dating relationship. And then the instrument that I use is RDAS, or Revised Dyadic Adjustment Scale by Busby et al. In 1995, consists of 4 dimensions and 14 items. And then for the emotional suppression, I use emotional regulation questionnaire by Grosjean 2003, consists 1 dimension and 4 items. Next. For the result, we can see from the table there is significant relationship between emotional suppression and marital distress, which is negatively correlated, and it shows that 1% of the variance in marital distress can be predicted by emotional suppression, which is has a small effect size by Cohen and Cohen in 1988. And then next, I also did analysis difference on the ARDA score based on gender, sexual activity, number of children, and residential status, and the result is for all the gender, sexual activity, number of children, and residential status, there is a difference in the ARDA score. I use t-test and ANOVA to analyze this data. Next. for the discussion. So the research finding is in line with the previous research, which found that the use of emotional suppression can damage marital relationship and reduce the quality of relationship during the early stages of marriage. Considering that this research was conducted in Indonesia, which was characteristics adherent to Eastern culture, it was estimated that there will be a more positive relationship between the two variables, but I think because of the display rules may be playing the role in this situation, so the result is a little bit different from what was found in the previous studies in the Eastern countries. And then for the study, we found that women tend to feel more depressed and experience increased stress than men because they are overwhelmed with their responsibilities and role to take care of their families and work, especially during this time in COVID-19 pandemic. And then changes in sexual activity also relate to the higher level of marital distress during pandemic because of worries. We know the fear of virus spreading from the couples, and then lack of privacy and additional stress. Next. And then the higher the number of the children, the higher the individual marital distress. This is especially the case during the pandemic when the presence of the children at home due to isolation and quarantine can create tension and increase the need for child care. Also, individuals who live separately from their partners tend to have a higher level of marital distress than individuals who live with their partners. This happens because the inability of one partner to optimally perform their role and the many obstacles that exist make long distance relationship can be complicated for many couples. And for the last, the study still has many limitations. So in the future, conducting more balanced number of participants based on gender, culture, and relationship background are necessary so the sample can be more representative. Other than that, the research can also use couple as participants to get a dyadic data considering marriage involves two individuals who are interrelated. I think that is for me. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Tiara Shifa, for your presentation. I would like to share a time for anyone who's having a question for Ms. Tiara Shifa for her article, Analysis Between Emotional Suppression and Marital Distress on the First 5 Years of Marriage. Do you already married, Ms. Tiara Shifa?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm still in my master's study.
Okay. So this is for your thesis?
Yes, that's right. Some part of it.
Okay, I think this is interesting because the research is due during the pandemic, and also we know that in this time the divorce rate is increased. So
yeah.
I think there's a correlation between there's a point from your presentation like of privacy that maybe it affects the emotional distress and and affect marital distress for the couples, because usually maybe they have a me time while they go to work and they have time for themselves, and then after the pandemic and they have to work from home, so maybe it makes the couples, so why I met with you again and again. So yes, the divorce rate is increased in Malang, also is increased
higher.
so yeah, I guess it affects a lot condition during the pandemic.
Yeah. And it also affect the sexual activity. Yes.
So it it also next affect the marital distress also.
Yeah, that's right. Because lack of privacy.
Because lack of privacy. So I want about the ERDES
score. I mean. Yeah, because the instrument I use is name RDES.
Okay, okay. So you adapted from another scale, or
No, I just like a little bit for the sentences, so
okay.
it can become more clearly for the participants to read it. Mhm.
Okay, maybe anyone who's having a question for Miss Tiara Siva? I think her research is so interesting, especially for early marriage couples. Okay, if there are no question for Miss Tiara Shiva, maybe we can give applause to her for her presentation. Thank you, Miss Tiara Shiva. I hope you can finish your study immediately. Okay, thank you. I would like to.
Thank you so much, Miss Pravisi.
Okay, thank you, Miss Tiara Shiva. And now I would like to give time for our last presenter, Miss Janice Valencia, Miss Mega Nilamsari, and Miss Teola Valencia for their article, The Impact of Perinatal Depression on Child Nutrition.
Okay.
Miss Janice Valencia is ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank
Okay.
you for the opportunity. Let me share my screen.
Okay. Time and screen is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today, I would like to present about my article with the title is The Impact of Perinatal Depression on Child Nutrition. So, from the introduction, perinatal depression is a serious mental health that can impact an individual and also the development of the baby. The prevalence of perinatal depression in developing country is 11% for depression during pregnancy and 13% for depression before childbirth or postpartum depression. As for developing country, the predicted of the prevalence rate will be higher in the Asian countries. Several factors can influence the perinatal depression, namely a younger age in marriage year, lower education, and having a history of the other disease, experience the depression before, having a family history with a psychiatric disorder, and having a history of the premenstrual symptom. Although there has several studies examining the prenatal depression, there are many controversies that regarding depression. In systematic review, it's to determine the relationship between the perinatal depression and physiological change in pregnant women and the impact of the perinatal depression on fetus and infant. The method I use in this systematic review is gathered from the Sake, Tyler and Francis, PubMed, Science Direct, GNS, PMC, BMG, and Frontiers, and also from the Wiley online library and Oxford Academy. The following search term we use is perinatal depression, child nutrition, maternal depression, nutrition in pregnancy, and relation to depression, the risk of the perinatal depression on the child, major depression disorder in women, and fetus nutrition. The keywords are used by research independently or in the combination to maximize the range of the literature research. In literature search was conducted in January, I'm sorry, it should be 2021. The research performed from following steps, namely, first, based on the title of the article, to identify the article, there was two variables used by the research in the abstract from the article to find the content and whether the article content collected was appropriate for further screening according to inclusion and exclusion criteria. So the total hits we get is 1,857 articles. Then we excluded in 1,768 articles based on the title and the abstracts. We use it in the second round is 89 articles. Then we excluded again 69 articles excluded based on the full text review. So we only use 20 relevant articles after the second selection round. The literature obtained was selected based on the inclusion criteria. First, already through a peer review process and published during 2010 until 2021, written in English, contain the information on the number of samples and participants will involve. An article do not meet this criteria will be excluded. So this is the summary of the the physiological in women, there is estradiol increase 50 times and progesterone increase in intensity. The nutritional condition in the body, especially folic acid, vitamin B12, and polyunsaturated fatty acid can affect the depression. Folic acid supplement can reduce the depression by up to 50%, and folic acid and vitamin B are used to synthesize and metabolize the serotonin and other monoamine neurotransmitter. As we know that serotonin and monoamine neurotransmitter is have their effect on depression. And DHA status in pregnant women, especially from the second trimester, is fully depleted until delivery. So the DHA status will return to normal after the 6 months of postpartum, and this deficiency DHA can cause the measure of depression in pregnant women. The impact of the postpartum depression is poor hygiene. The poor hygiene also can impact the child hygiene too. The immunization in infant is not complete because the mother is not engaged with the child, and the problem in routinely giving breastfeeding is not adequate, and the attachment insecurity alter the mother and child interaction. The perinatal depression and child nutrition, the preterm infant do not have energy storage, so they need to catabolize body protein to meet their needs. Perinatal depression can also cause the child underweight because because the child didn't receive the breastfeeding from the mother. And nutritional needs in the first 1,000 days are not met properly. Breastfeeding is not given adequately. One child already stunted. Socioeconomic and maternal education also have the influence on nutritional need. So from the discussion based on this systematic literature review, there are physiological change in pregnant women which can increase the risk of depression in pregnant women is not fulfilled. In addition, it was also found that pregnant women with a previous history of depression had the higher risk of experiencing the perinatal depression compared to pregnant women who had never experienced the depression. The needs of the vitamin B6, B12, and folic acid, and also the fatty acid is related to the neurotransmitter, actually for the neurotransmitter with the serotonin and also with the dopamine. And the N3 fatty acid affect the membrane fluidity so that individual can experience the depression. In individual with the N3 fatty acid deficiency, there is a reduced content of the fatty acid in the organ of membrane and the brain, which can change the change of viscosity. Change of the membrane viscosity itself can interfere the metabolism of serotonin 5-hydroxytryptophan. This is the neurotransmitter for the serotonin, which is known as the associated with the depression. It also supports the research that connected the fatty acid, it can reduce the depression. So the vitamin B known to affect the depression. Some studies show that B6 can be adjuvant to the therapy for depression and found that the vitamin B6 can have the positive effect on the brain related to the neurotransmitter to have the positive effect. By reducing the depression, vitamin B may reduce the risk of depression for the neurotransmitter serotonin and dopamine also. Meanwhile, vitamin B12 and folate are needed for the synthesis and metabolism of serotonin and monoamine neurotransmitter. This folate deficiency is not only risk in the perinatal depression, but also in preeclampsia, low birth weight, neural tube defect, and spontaneous abortion. So at the early of the pregnancy, sometimes the obstetric specialist will be give the mother of vitamin B, folic acid, and also the vitamin B6. The perinatal depression can have the impact on low birth weight and also on inadequate breastfeeding. Poor hygiene experienced by the mother can pose a risk to child bacterial infection or viral infection. In addition, there is also child obesity due to the inadequate nutrition and inappropriate feeding. Obesity or overweight in children can also due to the absence of physical activity between the mother and the child. In perinatal depression, stunted children and underweight are also found. Both the underweight and overweight is the two problems experienced by the children, with the having the mother with the perinatal depression and also postpartum depression. A healthy diet needed protein like fish and eggs and adequate nutrition, especially vitamin A, C, K, D, magnesium, folic acid, and potassium. It will influence the brain and the developing brain and cognitive function of the child. So from the conclusion, the pregnant woman, there are physiological changes. Then they need adequate nutrition for the pregnant woman to reduce the risk of the perinatal depression, so that it doesn't have the impact on child growth and also in the child nutrition. The experimental research is needed to find out the cause and effect to improve this research. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Miss Janice Valencia from Ciputra for her presentation and the impact of perinatal depression in child nutrition. Okay, I would like to share the time for for anyone who want to who's having question for Miss Janice Valencia. This is our last presenter for today, so I hope that maybe there is a question for Miss Janice. Are you from psychology, Miss Janice Valencia?
My master from science psychology in University of Surabaya.
Okay. Anyone who's having question for Miss Janice Valencia? Why Miss Janice decide to have a research about perinatal depression?
First of all, I'm interested in depression, and the child nutrition is also have the depression in women also have the impact in the child, because as a depression, they cannot take care of themselves, and the pregnancy will have the higher risk, make the risk higher from the depression mother to have the child with overweight, and with the improper environment, because they can take care of herself, and it will be impact the children also. And with the pregnant woman, they have the change of the metabolism, as I said, that the DHA is changed, and also the folic acid, the vitamin B6 and vitamin B12. It also get the depression of the mother before get more severe than before. So it will cause the children after the mother give birth. Of course, the children with not taking care very adequately, not giving the breastfeeding adequately, and sometimes you can find actually around in Ciputra there are Made in Puskesmas Made, there have so many stunted children because the low economic status, and also they have some mental illness with there. So the children is not taken care of properly. That's why I'm taking this title, this research, because it's interesting for me to know the impact in children nutrition while if the mother have the mental illness.
Okay, that's a very interesting point of view. But from what I learned before, the stressed woman during pregnancy could increase the cortisol hormone, and it affects the emotion of the child. But apparently, it also affect the nutrition for the child. Yeah, so it's a new point of view for me. Thank you for Miss Janice Valencia for your presentation today.
Thank
Maybe
you.
anyone? I give you the last for question for Miss Janice Valencia, maybe.
Hello.
Okay, Miss Nur Eva.
Yes. I want to explain about your conclusion that only nutrition is needed to prevent perinatal depression. Why you didn't mention other factor?
There's a lot of factor to prevent perinatal depression. Like that, Miss Nur Eva?
Yes. The conclusion is paper.
Maybe you can present the conclusion from your research, Miss Janice Valencia. Yes? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I will explain this because this conclusion, there is so many sentence I don't adding to my paper, my presentation today. But in this conclusion on my PowerPoint, I will explain about the how important to know that the perinatal depression and postpartum depression can very impact the adequate nutrition of the child. So I will make it clear for the conclusion in here. I put in my PowerPoint is only the point I want to tell the participant in here, but in the article also I explain about the other factor that can help for the child taking care good because they have a family support, they have a good husband, and also if the mother get the earlier pharmacotherapy or non-pharmacotherapy, they will have the impact also with the good adequate breastfeeding, with the emotional relationship with the children also. But I'm not added in this PowerPoint, so it is on my article but not in my PowerPoint.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. It's clear,
Yeah.
Miss Nur Eva?
Yes, enough.
Thank you, Miss Nur Eva, for your question. Maybe anyone who's have another question for Miss Janice Valencia? I think the conclusion is quite clear that adequate nutrition for a pregnant woman can reduce the risk of perinatal depression. So, furthermore, it also reduce the lack of nutrition in children. Like that, Miss Janice Valencia?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Maybe if there are no question anymore, I would like to thank Miss Janice Valencia. Give applause to Miss Janice Valencia for her presentation today. With the presentation from Miss Valencia, so the session for this call for paper in ECOPSI 20 and 21 is finished. So I want to thank you for all the presenter for coming for give your presentation to us here. I would like to remind you again about fill the presence link as our database issue certificate. Please ensure that the data entered is correct. You can choose the participant status according to the session you are participating in. So there are no mistake in your certificate. Okay, thank you very much for your attention today. I would like to say goodbye. I hope we can meet you again next year to participate in our next ECOPSI. Okay, so thank you. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. You are welcome, Bu Santi. Goodbye.
Goodbye.